Ladies and gentlemen, Congressman Jim Bridenstine.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I can honestly say I've never been a part of an event like this, but it's an honor, and certainly you guys are the ones, quite frankly, that put me in the position I'm in. So I am humbled and grateful, and thank you for all that you do. A couple of things, I just want to say a few thank yous. I'm not going to give any political speeches today, but I want to start by talking about what's going on in Washington, D.C. with Freedom Works and Heritage Action. These are groups that are doing amazing work, and I want to talk for a second about I heard some of the pressures that we come under in Washington, D.C. I want to be clear about what this means. You get to Washington, and everything favors the status quo. If you want to raise money from the lobbyists and the political action committees in Washington, D.C., well, you've got to favor the status quo, because the lobbyists and the political action committees and all the people that fund your campaign on both parties support the status quo. If you want to get your name on a bill, you got to support the status quo. Some of us have had our names removed from bills because they needed them to pass, and they didn't want them to pass with my name on it. It happens. If you want to chair a subcommittee or chair a full committee, you got to support the status quo. If you want to move up the ladder in seniority, you got to support the status quo. So everything, when you look at Washington, D.C., everything supports the status quo, and when people get there, they learn this, they understand it, and all of a sudden they're supporting the status quo. Heritage Action and Freedom Works are two organizations that are letting the world know how it works, and they're changing the dynamics. And not only are they doing it from Washington, I find it hilarious when I hear politicians. If you ever see a politician that's supported by Freedom Works, they're like, oh, well, that's an inside the Beltway organization. Oh, that person's a Beltway person. I want to be clear. If it's Freedom Works or Heritage Action or Club for Growth, that is not Beltway establishment support. Although the politicians would like you to believe that it's Beltway establishment support, but here's how you know it's not. They're here. They're here right now, and they're integrated with you guys. And boy, I'll tell you, thank you, Rhonda, for, man, putting all this together. I don't deserve this. But thank you for putting this together, and thank you for Freedom Works and Heritage Action for being here and supporting Rhonda. And Rhonda, thank you for supporting them. I have had, from time to time, phone calls come into my office, and members or my staff, they come to me in my committee hearing and they pull me out and they're like, we're getting a ton of phone calls, you got to come listen. And I've talked about this before at 912 project meetings, and I get back and I try to figure out, you know, what are all these phone calls about, and then I find out that it's Rhonda behind it. I give her a call and she's like, oh yeah, we're doing this, and well, don't worry, it's Rhonda, we're all good. They may be calling now, but as soon as they see how I vote, it'll all be fine. So, but thank you guys for all of this support. Heritage Action, Freedom Works, the 912 Project. I saw Tea Party. The Tea Party is here as well, all over the state. And certainly there's people not from the 1st District. So thank you so much. I want to say one other thank you before I get off the stage, and that is to my staff. And Brian, you nailed it. These people that work for me have so many other opportunities, and they have taken a position that doesn't pay as well. Certainly, they don't get rewarded the way they might get rewarded in other businesses. They take a lot of heat from you guys. Actually, not really, but from other constituents that are upset about this, that, or the other. But I want to tell you something about this staff that I have. And I've told this story before, I'm going to tell it again. When we were looking at Obamacare not too long ago, it was being implemented and being forced upon members of Congress and their staffs. It's written into law that all members of Congress have to buy their health care from the exchanges. So my wife and I were on Obamacare. It's also written into law that official staff of members of Congress have to buy their health care from the exchanges. That official staff of members of Congress have to buy their health care from the exchange. That's written into the law. Well, this wasn't, I guess, liked by Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi. So they set up a meeting with Barack Obama, and they got the agencies that have jurisdiction here to write a rule. And the rule is that if you're an unofficial staff member, then you don't have to buy your health insurance from the exchange. And they bring me a piece of paper, and they say, if you'll just declare your staff unofficial, then you can opt them out of the exchange. And I got to tell you, with everything in my body, I wanted to sign that piece of paper. Everything I had, I didn't go to Washington to put more people into Obamacare. I had to sign that piece of paper. And then I thought about it, and I went to the floor of the House, and I saw a friend of mine, Thomas Massey from Kentucky. Another great member. And I asked him what he was doing. And he said, well, do you believe in the law? I'm getting emotional even talking about it. He said, do you believe in the law? I said, yes, I believe in the law. He said, then you can't sign that piece of paper. And he was right. We cannot hold this president accountable for not following the law if we as members of Congress are not willing to follow it ourselves. And this is emotional for me because I've got staff members who have health insurance, and because they were forced into the exchanges, their premiums went up. For one of my staff members, $11,000 for the course of the year. For another staff member, $8,000 for the course of the year. Their premiums were going up. And I got my staff around a table and I explained to them the situation. That this is another example of the president trying to play gotcha, trying to trap us into his little world of the law doesn't apply to the rest of us, it only applies to the people that aren't part of the political class. And one by one, we went around the table and I asked them, tell me what you think, tell me what you think. And each one of them said, you can't sign that piece of paper. That's my staff that said that. They took a hit because in our office we're going to continue to believe in the law. We're going to fight for the law. We believe in the Constitution. And the story earlier about Korea, I'm going to tell this quickly. I've told it before. I'm going to tell it again. When I was a young junior officer in the Navy, I went to Korea. We had an exercise. North Korea invaded South Korea. How do we respond to this? How would we respond to this aggression? Well, we would deploy aircraft carriers, we would do these things. And so I went over to South Korea to participate in this exercise. And when I was in South Korea, I took a day off. I was there for 30 days. I took a day off. I went up to Panmunjom, where the armistice was signed in 1953. And I know there's people in this room that might have served in Korea. If you're here and you served in Korea, would you raise your hand? Is there anybody here? We got one. Thank you. When I was up at Panmunjom, I was with a Japanese soldier. He spoke Korean, he spoke English, and he spoke Japanese, of course. And he was interpreting for me what I was seeing. And as you look across the demilitarized zone, because there is no treaty, there is no peace, it is an armistice, it is a ceasefire. North Korea and South Korea are technically still at war. And so there's a demilitarized zone, and you look across the demilitarized zone, big city. And a clear day you can see it from this watchtower at the demilitarized zone. And I asked the soldier, I said, the brief I had indicated that they're extremely poor all across this country. Why are there all those big buildings out there on the horizon? And here's what he said. He said those buildings have no windows, they have no floors, they have no purpose. They were built as propaganda to encourage South Koreans to defect to North Korea. We heard the loudspeakers, we saw the billboards. The loudspeakers said, "Come to North Korea, the land of opportunity." At the time, 5% of the population in North Korea was starving to death every year, and yet they're saying, "Come to North Korea, the land of opportunity." The billboard said, "Come to North Korea. Our generals are better than your generals." And every time I say that, it gets a laugh, and here's the truth. For us, it's foreign. That idea is weird. Come to North Korea. Our generals are better than your generals. That's what separates this country from all the other nations of the world. I heard the quote earlier. Ronald Reagan said, "We have a nation with a government, not the other way around." The government does not have a nation. We have people that have given the government the authority and the power that it's have, and it's only by the consent of the governed do they have that authority and power. Well, in these other countries, that's not how it works. And of course, in North Korea, they entice their people. Our generals are better than your generals. Well, here in the United States, we don't fight for generals. We don't fight for autocrats. We don't fight for men at all at any level of government. We fight for the institutions that we believe in. We fight for the rule of law that my staff correctly decided to uphold. We fight for the freedom to assemble, as we're doing here today. Rhonda, I'm guessing you didn't register this event with the federal government, did you? That's what we fight for in the United States military. We fight for the freedom to worship. And when I was in South Korea, I went to church, and on Sunday morning, I decided to go to church, and I'm walking down the street, and there's a church that's got a cross on the door. That's all I knew. I didn't know if it was a Protestant denomination, a Catholic denomination, or I didn't know what it was. I just walked in. It's got a cross on the door. And of course, there's people worshiping. They don't look like me. They don't speak my language. But we started singing. And when we started singing, we were singing words I didn't understand, but it was in the melody of Amazing Grace. And friends, the only reason that's possible is because somebody from our country went to that country, and a lot of those people made the ultimate sacrifice, and I'm sure you know some of those. Friends, what we fight for is the Constitution, the rule of law. And I've had so many members of Congress come up to me, "We need you on this. We got to have your vote. We got to get you and all your friends. We got to get you on this." And of course, they always want to bring up the military piece. You know what it's like to follow orders? You know what it's like? You got to get on this team. And it's always either football or something to do with the military. Well, when my leaders are running for the wrong goalpost, I don't follow them. But here is the point that I like to make about the military piece. And my wife has lived with this with me. In the military, you do follow orders. Absolutely, you follow orders. You get in line and you do exactly what your country is asking you to do. Because you're sworn to uphold the Constitution and follow the orders of the President of the United States and the officers appointed over you. That's absolutely required and critically important. But the reason people do that is so that your member of Congress can go to Washington, D.C. and represent you without having to follow anybody's orders. So I just want to say thank you all for being here. Thank you for everything. There's so many people. I'm looking around. I could mention so many stories and tell how much all of you have helped me at one point or another. And I know I'd leave somebody out. I can't go through the whole room. But what you guys have done today means so much to me personally. I know I wanted my wife and children to be here. I didn't know it was going to be this big. I didn't know it was going to be this overwhelming. I didn't know there was going to be balloons with my name on them. I didn't know I was going to listen to the Oak Ridge Boys. Somebody in my office is getting fired. Somebody in my office is going to get fired for letting them know about the Oak Ridge Boy problem that I have. Oh, Brian's waving his hand. But boy, I'll tell you, it's an honor and a privilege to represent you, and I know that I've from time to time had some really difficult times in Washington, and I've called people back at home. I've called Rhonda, and I've said, Rhonda, I got to just come and talk to the 912 Project. I need support because I'm not feeling it right now, and you always have me come, and of course Pat Campbell's always been so willing to let me come on if I ever need to get an issue out on the air that's important, and I always try to be as receptive as possible when Pat sends me a text, hey, we got this issue, can you come talk about it? But man, there's so many people in this room that have helped me, and I want to make sure everybody understands that when we were campaigning, I said this over and over again, that I ran because I did feel called. Pat's absolutely right. I felt called. God never told me I was going to win. And during the campaign trail, my staff would say, or you know, the campaign side of things, they'd say, do you think you can win? Do you think you can win? And I kept telling people, yeah, I think we can win. It's going to take this and this and this, but I think we can win. But I would also tell them something else. And that is that we already have won, and it doesn't depend on this election. We won the day God gave us our Savior, Jesus Christ. That victory is over, and we can claim it. And from this point forward, we need to live what we believe. And that's what this is about. And you guys are here supporting me in ways that I never dreamed would happen. But I just want to thank you all so much. God bless you, and God bless our country.
Congressman Jim Bridenstine, Oklahoma's rock star congressman.